Hello and welcome to another Beer Clubber video. Now, regular viewers will have already seen most of the build that I'm about to show you because I put this into my regular vlogs. But I do like to collect these together into a video where everything is all together so that you can see it as a complete whole rather than spread over weeks or months as quite a lot of my projects are. And this time I'm going to be showing you the process of making my entry for the Heroic Highlights challenge on Instagram from earlier in this year, quite a long time ago actually. The challenge theme was any scene from the films, which is a wonderful theme. Fair play to you, Charles. You picked the best of themes, really open, and means that the people that enter can spread their wings and be really creative. Now, I chose the scene in Erebor where Smaug is just about to light the furnaces, and it's a brilliant scene. I love it. I'm not a big fan of the rest of the Erebor scenes, but that particular one is really, really cool. And I had a lot of fun making it. So I will shut up talking now. I really hope you enjoy it. Let me know in the comments below what you think. Really do appreciate every single comment I receive. And I hope you enjoy the video, and we'll do the build, have some photographs, and then I'll see you again at the end for the wrap up. Right, so this is the first file I'm printing for this Heroic Highlights challenge. Had so much fun last time doing the barrels out of Bond. I've decided to try to better it, and yeah, this is the first print, which I've not looked at yet. It looks like it's printed okay. So there it is. Yes, that is Smaug. Very big. So my plan is to do the scene in Erebor where Smaug is breaking into the forges. So I've got this awesome Smaug model, which is 2 plates, the same size as this. So I've got another plate this size to print as well after this. And then I also found someone did for free. This is free on Thingiverse, and the other one was for free on Colts 3D. They did the actual, they did the forges, which are amazing, and I was very surprised to see it. They did that, and that's also for free. And I saw this a few weeks ago and thought, oh, I'll do a diorama for that. But then when this challenge came up, I thought that's the perfect excuse to do the diorama. So I'm going to get this taken off the plate, going to get it cleaned up, washed up, cured, start the next print running, and then when I've got everything together, I will start to paint up the Smaug head. Now I think that the forge is going to be, well, I can print it on the Saturn, definitely, but I think I'm going to try and print that on the Prusa. But if I don't get the Prusa set up in the next week or so, then I'll just do it on the Saturn anyway, because I'll run out of time. But yeah, really cool. I'm really pleased. It looks like that's printed very well. Yeah, here we have a box full of Smaug. So I've finished printing all the parts, and they have printed out absolutely beautifully, as you can see. So yeah, very, very pleased. Really cool result. However, what I now need to do is take these teeth, of which there are a lot, and stick them in those little holes, of which there are a lot. So I'm not going to do that on camera because it's going to be tedious as hell, but all I'll be doing is using a bit of super glue to stick all of these little teeth into the mouth of Smaug, and that's the first thing I'm going to do. I'm going to do that before I do anything else because I think I need to, unless I yeah, I think I need to. I don't think it's going to work to try to glue these other things together and then come and glue the teeth, the Smaug's teeth on. But you can see that that goes together really nicely. There's a couple of bits of warping just from my printing, but I'll be able to quite easily fix that with a little bit of filler. Just use my Mr. Hobby dissolved putty, and maybe even some milliput in the bigger parts. But it's printed out beautifully, apart from that little bit of a pull there. So now I'm going to get that all glued together, get the teeth stuck in, and when that's done I'll bring it back for painting and the next step. Smaug teeth. This is legitimately a real pain in the backside. It really is a very fiddly job. So I've just been doing it on and off through the week. 10 minutes here, 10 minutes there. I'm sat watching a YouTube video right now, non-hobby related. And I thought I'd quickly film just to show how I'm doing it. Because if you want to do this, you're going to have to print this model and do the same thing. You have to do the same thing. So I put a little bit of my super glue gel in there. And then grabbed some tweezers. I've printed out more sets of teeth. A couple of reasons. One of them, I've spoined some teeth across the room a couple of times and can't find them. And secondly, I actually made a mistake and put teeth in the wrong place. But I actually don't mind it because I like how it's looking. So I used the big teeth in too many places, but it does make him look a little bit more aggressive, and that's not the worst thing in the world. So very carefully take your tooth. Don't spoing it. Which is why I keep dropping it, because I'm doing my best not to hold it too tight, but that just adds to the frustration, because if you hold it too tight in the tweezers it will go across the room. So let me just get this seated in the tweezers correctly, and then once you've got it seated in the tweezers you can very carefully put it into the hole in the gum, and then once it's in there, and this is one of the benefits of gel super glue, you can kind of nudge it a little bit into place with your hands, with your fingers like this, to get it to the right angle, and then there we are, we've got another tooth. And it's taken ages. So I've done quite a lot on this side as well, as you can see, but I haven't done very much on the bottom drawer at all on this side. I've only done 2. And on the right hand side I've got a long way further on both sides. So I'm just going to keep cracking on with that. Once I've finished gluing these in place, there'll be a huge cheer, and then I'll bring you back and we'll do the rest of the gluing for the main body, or the main part of the head. We'll do the whole head together and do that all, fill in all the gaps. So I've finally managed to finish sticking all the teeth on in the mouth of Smaug. So what I'm now going to do is start to glue everything together. So you can see that they're not perfect. This is an artifact of my printing. They've not come together totally and utterly straight. However, they're definitely good enough. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue them together like this, clamp them to make sure they don't move, and then leave them overnight to dry properly. Now, they do actually, the files do come with pegs, locator pegs, which I don't know whether I should have printed or not. I didn't, mainly because I know that things like that don't print very well on my resin printer, and this I think is designed to be printed on an FDM, but my FDM isn't working yet. But what I need to do is make sure that when I glue them together, you can see there's that slight little gap there at the bottom, that they are actually going to work. Because the worst thing would be to do this and find that they don't actually marry up. So what I'm going to need to do is just make sure that I'm not going to have too much remediation needed when I come to actually stack the prints. And this is one of those times where you just need to be a little bit patient and offer things up a couple of times and just make sure you're not making any stupid mistakes, and make sure when you actually do your gluing, you're gluing it right. Now it might make sense for me to glue them like this, and then once I've got each half stuck correctly, then glue them together. But I'm going to sit now, spend 20 minutes or so just offering them up, make sure everything looks right, make sure I'm not making any mistakes, and then when I've got them glued and clamped and I'm happy, then I'll show you how I've done it. So yeah, let's just get these all glued together. Really, really cool. It's going to look amazing though. I'm really pleased with how it's coming on so far. But that tooth project, that was awkward. That was a pain. Oh, this glued together really nicely. There are gaps, as you can see. They come from my print failures, in that I printed it and it kind of like sagged a bit. I didn't put it to the right angle, obviously, to avoid that kind of problem, which is very common with resin printers. but I can fill that quite easily, and I'm going to make use of Milliput to fill these gaps. So that's the Milliput I'm going to use. I'm not going to go filming all of this because Milliput is something, if you want to find out how to use it, you can watch other videos and mix it up and push it in and wait for it to go off, as simple as that. But I'll fill all of the gaps that you can see and then bring you back when I've finished doing that filling and I'm ready to start painting. My workshop downstairs is making progress, and fingers crossed I will have my FDM printer done soon, so I can get that set up and attempt to print out the furnace, because I need to have at least 2 if not 3 of those furnaces for this diorama. But I can make a start on this, and I can do the fences or the bars that he's burst through, so I can do all that side of the diorama, and hopefully I'll be able to get the furnaces done in time as well. So yeah, let's get filling, yeah, I'll be back when I've done that. It's just going to be a case again of make a bit of Milliput, put it in, make a bit of Milliput, put it in, and I'll probably do it during the day, tomorrow as well as this evening when I'm working. It's a good little kind of task to take 10 minutes off my, and break my working day up. So yeah, it'll probably take a little while, but we'll get there. I'm really pleased with how it's looking. It's such an awesome bulky sculpt, and it's going to look absolutely fantastic when it's painted up and in place. I've done the Milliput, as you can see, but it's not absolutely smooth. So I'm going to try something a bit different now. Again, most of this will be done off camera because it's just going to be very, very repetitive and boring. But I've got my Mr. Dissolve Putty and a brush, which I don't care about particularly. And I'm going to come along and I'm going to brush the Mr. Dissolve Putty on over the top of the gap, because there's a little bit of a lip, and I think this is going to end up being the best way to fill that. I think that Milliput is going to be a little bit too annoying at this stage, so it's going to take a little time, not a huge amount of time. As you can see, it's relatively slow, quick to apply, but I do have some other places I need to apply it as well where I wasn't able to reach. So if we look into the mouth, you can see at the, I don't know if you can see because it's a bit difficult, but just at the bottom here there's a little bit of a gap which I couldn't get in with the Milliput, so I need to fill that as well with the Mr. Dissolve Putty. You can apply this with a brush, or you can apply it with a toothpick. Funny enough, I think inside the mouth I'm going to go with the toothpick method, but for this up here I'm going to go with the brush method. And I have had people asking me that in the past, how do you apply it? It was just as simple as this. Anyway, I'm going to I'm watching some pro cycling on replay, Australia Championship or something. So I'm going to go and sit and watch that and chill and do this, and then head to bed because I'm quite tired, been a long day. But I wanted to get some hobbying done today. This is the extent of it. I've had no time for anything else at all. This is looking so epic. So I'm pretty happy with how that is, pretty happy with the filling. It's not perfect, but it's going to be good enough for what I need. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to prime it grey, just using my normal surface primer from Vallejo. Prime with a brush, so this will take me a little while. I will bring you along for some of the painting of this after this. I will show you some of the stuff I do, but I'm not going to do a live painting, so I'll just talk through the colours. But it's pretty established. It's the red dragon, and Smaug, so it's going to be painted with reds, and it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm telling myself this because I know also it's going to take a lot of time. So yeah, onwards. I'll have to print running 8 hours later. I have the bottom half of the Erebor furnace for my diorama for heroic highlights. Now I've had quite a bit of trouble printing this. This is actually going to be a second attempt, or maybe even third. I was trying to print it all as one, and on the resin printer, while it will fit, it's just not playing nicely. And actually, I do think this is still too small. But it's I've split it in half, just simply using the simple built-in editor on Windows, and this is the bottom half, sorry, the top half, and I'm going to print the bottom half later, which is even bigger, going to take longer. My thinking is that I might need the FDM printer to do this right, but I still wanted to give it a try, and it's worked. So I'm going to pull that off the plate and start printing the other piece, and then see what it looks like. But like I say, I do have this feeling that it's just going to end up being too small even, and it's going to be a case of me needing to get my FDM printer working to get this part, which is going to be quite a an ask and might mean that I don't actually finish this diorama in time for the challenge, but it doesn't matter because it's still going to be done and I'm still really pleased about it. But yeah, it's moving on, and at least it didn't fail. In the next instalment of Beard Keeps Making Stupid Mistakes, here's Smaug's head. Very shiny. I've done this before on a previous build, the Snake Temple, which is one of my earlier ones. I used a spray can. Now, I don't use aerosols very often, as you know, and I used a spray can which was enamel paint, and I've done it again. So what I'm going to do to try and save this, first attempt to try and save this, but before I have to print it again, which will really annoy me, is use the Liquitex acrylic medium varnish, matte varnish, to paint over the entirety of the model in a thin coat, and hope that that will give me some bite, because what I've found is nothing will stick to this enamel. None of my paints will actually adhere to it, so it's going to be a real pain in the backside to do all the other colours. Not that there's actually all that much to do, it's more shades and washes, but they need tooth, they need something to stick to. So I'm going to give it a go. It's going to take 2 applications because of how I need to hold the model. As you can see, I can't really do down here because I need to hold it. But I'm going to paint on this acrylic medium over the whole of it and see if when that's dry I can actually finish off painting this model. I'm really annoyed at myself. But you live and learn, or sometimes you learn. I didn't learn in this case. But I'll get the rest of it done, and then I'll return when it's when I know whether it's worked or not, and I'll show you what the results are. So some good news. That worked, I think. I can see some parts where I missed. I don't know whether this is going to actually show up really well. Actually, it does show up a bit on the camera. Just here you can see a bit that I missed. It's really shiny still. The rest of it is matted down, and it feels like it's going to take paint much better than the enamel paint. So I seem to have saved my mistake, which is a relief because I don't want to have to print that out again. So I'm going to carry on with this. Got to paint the eyes, obviously. Going to put some dark washes onto the horns. It actually doesn't need very much. It just needs to be dulled down a bit, and maybe some browns and some blacks, and some greys, and some browny reds, and that should be done. I'm not sure what I'm going to do about the tongue and the teeth. I'm probably going to have fire coming out anyway. We're going to have smoke and fire, so I might not see that very much. But that's cool. So with that done, I really need to print the other half of the of this furnace, which I've still only printed the top, so I might have to try and set that going. The concern I've got is that it's going to take a huge quantity of resin, and I'm probably going to need to be watching it and top it up, so timing when I started is proving difficult. I also think actually this is too small, but yeah, I mean it should be about twice the size it is, I think. If you look at it next to Smaug's head, it's just too small. They're huge. So that's the other thing. I'm umming and ahhing about actually splitting it again and printing it all again, or maybe even waiting for my Prusa to be up and running, but then I'm going to run out of time. So having said that, what I'm going to do is start working on the actual board, finish painting up Smaug's head, and then start working on the broken bars and that part of it. So at least I can start that on the base. So that's what I'll do next. I won't do the painting on camera, I'll just bring it finished and tell you what I've done. So the next thing I'm going to do is start looking at how I'm going to do the bars and start to build up the terrain on the board. So we're going to be shaky cam for a minute while I talk through my thoughts, and also you're going to see how messy my room is. So I'm just planning out the actual layout for the Smaug diorama, and I think I've worked out what I want to do, and I've changed my mind again, and I'm actually happier having changed my mind. So let me quickly swing round. I'm just watching on YouTube the scene, which is very dark, you can't really make it out, the scene in the films where Smaug burns and throws fire through the grating, that's the grating there on the left, and lights the forges. And I'm going to do the scene just here where he hasn't yet broken through and where he's burning fire. So if I start this clip from here, so you can see there's the it's not really picking it up very well, unfortunately, but there's the grating, and he comes along and he burns through, and they are hiding on the other side, and then it starts the forges. So that's the scene I'm going to do. So let's go back to my jobby over here. So what that's going to involve, actually what I'm going to do, I'm going to put the camera on the stand and then talk through how I'm going to do it. Alright, so what that's going to involve is I'm going to need to mount Smaug's head like this, which is going to work really, really nicely. As you can see, really nice with a load of fire coming through. So I'm going to mount that there, and so that will mean that I'm going to need to have an upright here onto which to mount him, which is going to be quite sturdy because he is quite heavy. And then the back is going to be quite a rough wall, but there's kind of a square pattern of steps going up, or some kind of like a little bit more finished stone. So it's finished stone in the square pattern stepping up, and then rough stone above it. And then here I will have the lattice work that he's blown his fire through with a couple of pillars, and I have some Bilbo and company on its way. My mum has it. She's arriving on Monday, so I will be able to paint them up hiding behind each of the pillars. And then on this end of the board I will be able to have at least one of the and I think I am going to print the bottom of this just to see how it looks, and I'll be able to have one of the forges which can sit right on the other end of the board. So I think it's going to work really nicely, and I'm very, very pleased, because as it happens this was the original plan, but I thought I wouldn't be able to pull it off, so I was going to go for the bit where he actually smashes through the bars, but that's not really what I wanted to do, and now I'm going to do my best to do it. To do this. So yeah, so I'm going to now think about how I'm going to mount him. That's the biggest, most challenging part, is how I'm going to mount him, and it might actually have to be wood that I stick him to and paint black or something like that, which is a bit annoying, but I think I'm going to have to do wood and really like secure it strongly. And if I do wood and really secure it strongly, then I might just do a 90-degree wooden frame and have that so that it's got some strength across there as well, so it's not just a wood stuck on here that could tilt, so it's actually a frame. So I might make a 90-degree frame that will go all the way around the back and all the way around the side, and then what I can do is I can stick my backdrops to that frame. So that's what I'm thinking at the moment, but there's going to be some thinking, there's going to be some planning, some mistakes, I'm sure. Once I've got a little bit more idea, and once I've maybe cut some wood, because that part makes a lot of sense to me, then I'll bring you along, show you how it's going, but I am going to now make sure to slice up correctly and attempt to print the bottom half of this furnace, or the forge, because I think I do need it. Well, this print has just finished. I haven't checked, literally just finished. As I film this, it's actually just gone to the top. I've not checked to see whether it's worked or not yet. I can't see any obvious failures from here. This is the top half of the Erebor forge, and if we zoom in you can see just how long it's taken. It's taken over 10 hours. That's been running since last night, overnight, and yeah, it looks like it's got some success. I'll now clean it up and check. The other things on there is a couple of vehicles for my TCU challenge for this month, so a couple of pickup trucks that I printed out and just shared the plate. But yeah, that main of that is the Erebor forge. Pretty pleased. Let's get it. Let's go and have a look at it and get it cleaned up and see how well it looks. Couple of updates on the Smaug diorama for heroic highlights. So the bottom printed, and it printed out fine, so I'm really, really pleased. So what I'm going to do now is glue that together, and then I can start to paint that and what have you. I have an awesome idea for how I'm going to do the gold, which is going to be in the top. The second thing is I have taken some rough metal, some scrap wood, and cut that roughly to size. It's not quite perfect, but it's good enough for what I need, and I'm going to screw that on the end like that. So to do that, I will be drilling through this one, probably 3 holes, then glue and clamp it in place, and then finally screw in through my guide holes. So I'll get that done off camera because it's going to be a lot of noise and a lot of kind of faffing, but basically screw and glue it, that's how I like it. And I will be making use of clonk, clank, clank, my nice 90-degree carpenter's angles. So I'll get that done, get that all set up, and then the Smaug head will be able to be affixed to this really, really nicely. Got some ideas on that, which I'll go into when I get to them. But the first thing I'll do is basically just matte black all of the wood, get that all done. Probably use spray, matte black, and just paint that all, maybe paint it on. I'm not sure, I do prefer painting it on, but get it all matte black, because then I can build up from that and do the rest of the scenery. So those are the things I'm going to do now. Glue together the printed forge and stick the end on this board to there, so that I've got the backdrop, the brace for Smaug's head, and then paint it. So next time you see this, those things will be done. My mum arrived safely yesterday, and with her she brought my Thorin Oak and Shield and Company that I ordered for this diorama. So I'm only going to be using a couple of the miniatures, 2 or 3, but it's good to have that because I didn't want to use the ones that I've already got, because I use them in games. So the next thing I'm going to do, I think, to actually work on this project is I'm not going to paint everything black, which I said I was going to. I've changed my mind on that. I'm going to get all of the elements in place, apart from Smaug. Get all of the elements in place. So stick the forge down, get the barrier up, get the back done as well. So the rocks and the slightly carved area there. And once I've done that, then paint it black, and then paint everything up, and then the last thing to do will be to put Smaug on to the back wall back here and put the miniatures in place. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to work out the pillars and the rough shape of the grate that goes in between each pillars, and I think I'm going to do 3 pillars so I can have Bilbo at the front. I think that Balin is next, and I will look and I'll watch the film again, watch that clip again, and make sure I work out who's on the third one, and I'll do those 3. And then once I've got that worked out, and roughly, I think it's got some quite diametric patterns on the grating, so I need to make sure I do it right. I'll need to maybe make a template so that I can cut those shapes correctly. Once I've got that right, and I work out roughly where I want it to sit, then I can look at building up the back. So I'm going to put these in to one side until I've watched the film, and then I'll pull out the 3 miniatures that I want. Definitely Bilbo, Balin, might be Thorin, Bilbo, Balin, and I can't remember. We'll do them in the correct order, and I'll put them in the painting bench and just get them painted up quickly. So that won't feature very much until they're on the diorama. So next up is going to be let's get the backdrop here and the grate in place, and I'll bring you along when I've done my planning, done my drawing, and I'm about to start cutting. So as part of my continued attempt to prevent warping, what I'm going to do is stick this thin XPS down on top of the shelf, and that will mean that anything that I do process-wise on top of this won't cause the bottom to warp. I hate warping. So it's going to be quite a simple thing for me to fix. I need to trim it to size, score it up with my wire brush, and then I'm going to make use of my Moment Fix Extreme, which I love so much, to stick that down, because that also doesn't cause warping. It's just going to stick it in place. So I'm going to get that done, just mark up, cut it out, glue it in place, and when that's set, then what I can do is I can then start to stick the uprights in, which are the pillars, and then put the grating in the middle, which is what the hobbits are hiding behind. And I can also look to stick my actual stick my forge in place. Now I am starting to wish that I'd picked a bigger or a longer diorama for this, because it's going to be a little bit constrained and a little bit outsized, but it's fine, it'll still look great. It's just that this is going to be a little bit close. There's going to be quite as much distance as there should be between this and the grating, but that's life. So yeah, I'll get that done, get that glued, and then bring you along when I get to the next step. I have the croakiest voice ever. I almost lost my voice earlier today. It's hanging around a little bit, but yeah, it's going to make it interesting making videos. But anyway, what I've got here is my sketch pad. Last time I used it was for Welling Hall, Treebeard's Home, one of my Battle Games in Middle-earth builds, which was very much fun. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to sketch out roughly what this grating, or whatever you want to call it, looks like, that I'm going to build between Smaug and Thorin's company. And I've been watching the video, and I've actually managed to find a little bit of a freeze frame which shows it a bit better, because when you look at it mostly, it looks like it is only just uprights, and there's not actually anything else going on. So you would just have like pillars like this being the solid material here. But actually every other pillar joins together in a peak, goes on up like this, I believe. No, it crosses over. It crosses over, actually. Apologies. So it kind of does this It's a bit of an interesting shape. So it has a kind of up, down, like that. So this is going to be solid, and this is going to be solid. And then the next one is just an upright, and then the next one does this kind of crossover effect, like that. I've drawn that better this time. There we are. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and reproduce this, which isn't actually as complex as I feared. I thought it was going to be a lot of carving, a lot of faffing, but creating some uprights and then creating some wider ones and cutting out these shouldn't be too hard, particularly if I make myself a nice template. So that's what I'm going to do now. There's the plan. Get that glued in place, and yes, I'll get that cut. I'll bring you along when I do the cutting. I'll show you the templates. Bring you along when I do the cutting, and then we can get that stuck in place and start to look at the backdrop. But at least I've understood now what's going on. The other thing that I've done, I've opened the pack of miniatures, and I've identified that actually there is Bomber here, then Balin, definitely next to each other. And Balin is the other side of Bomber. So I think what I'm going to have is, because I want to have the Hobbit, obviously I want to have Bilbo. So Bilbo here is going to be on the first, it's going to be hiding behind the first one. And then the next one across will have Bomber, and I might even be able to have more than that, but I'm going to have at least Bilbo, Bomber and Balin, and then I'll go from there to see how many other uprights I've got to hide them round. Now I'm going to have to do a little bit of converting, unfortunately, particularly Balin, who is holding his sword across his body here and is not really looking how I'd want him to for hiding from Smaug's fire. But I should be able to maybe be able to simply clip off the sword and maybe file down the arm and then do a little bit of green stuff to have his arm kind of like a little bit more down towards his side, but possibly even just taking his sword away might be enough. So there's going to be a little bit of green stuffing required, but hopefully not too much. So yeah, going to get the templates for the grating done, and I'll bring you along when I come to the cutting. Well, that took a bit of thinking and quite a few attempts. That was one of them. I realised it was probably a little bit wide, so I've made it a bit narrower, and I'm very happy with that. So that's 2 centimeters by 3 by 2, which is perfect. So what I then did is I've transferred these over to this Weetabix box, done it twice, so I can put one side on one side of my polystyrene and the other one on the other side, and then I'll be able to use the Proxxon to cut around that. So I'm going to tape that down, and I might even actually pin it as well, and get it so that it's not going to move, and then I'll bring you over to the Proxxon and we'll do some cutting. And I'm probably going to be able to get away with only 2 of these, so I'll need to cut this out and then cut the other one out. In hindsight, maybe I should cut a block, do the template once and then slice it in half. You know what, I'm going to do that. So I have the XPS. This is actually cut in half because it's 6 centimeter XPS, so or EPS even. So what I'll do is I'm going to get myself a block of EPS that's the correct height and twice the width, and then I can cut that out only once, and then I only have to slice through the middle once. So that'll save me some pain. So I'll get that done, get it all masked up, and then we'll go over to the Proxxon. Right, so I've masked up both sides, and now is the moment of truth. Find out whether I've wasted my time or not. So the idea is by masking both sides that you actually get a relatively accurate cut. It's very easy to make mistakes when you don't have it masked both sides. And you can see that that's going to work fine. So let's carry on. And that is good enough for me. So what I'll do now is set this to 30mm and then slice it in half like that, and then I'll have 2 of the shapes that I need for this part of the build. I'm very pleased with that. That's turned out rather well. I've got a little bit of an issue there. Let me just fix that. But that's turned out pretty well all round. There we are, that's better. Right, let's get that sliced in half and then we'll move on to the next step. Well, I got that done yesterday evening and then I was so tired, I went straight to bed and I couldn't even film, I was that tired. But you can see that that has worked out perfectly. I am so pleased. So I've got 2 of the shape and then 1 with no shape, and I think I'm probably going to need to have, I might even need to do another with the shape looking at this, but I'm not sure. I've got 1 there without the shape, so I might be able to do it just like that, but that's going to work great. I mean, I'm very, very pleased. I'm blown away by the fact that I managed to do it, frankly. Next thing to do is to work on the rocks and the wall here. So the wall finishes at this grate, so it comes along like this. There's some square kind of like shapes and then there's unfinished wall above it. So what I'm going to do and how I'm going to do that is I'm going to first of all make the square shapes and glue that all together, and I'll probably make use of the same black foam here, use the wire brush and what have you, and I'll probably also do the whole of the back using the black foam, because my plan is to put modelling compound on for the stone effect. I think that's going to give me the effect I see in the films best and easiest without trying to like pull apart XPS. So yeah, so I'm going to do some drawing, do some sketching again, and then when I've done that and I've got some rough designs, then I'll bring you along and show you how I'm going to sandwich it together. The only other thing to say is I'm really considering putting an LED inside or a light inside of his mouth, drilling through, and then I can drill a bigger hole here and feed in a battery and potentially have the smoke and fire starting, which might be cool, but that might be out of scope. I also need to get back to painting this. Need to darken them up a bit. Anyway, so yes, I'm going to do some drawing and some sketching, some measuring, and I'll bring you back when I've got a template. One thing I've just realised I missed, which I'm about to fix, is I should have had little kind of like notches out in line with these notches in on the double width. So I can do that quite easily by positioning each, by lining them up like that, and then I can put a double glue and stick them in. So I've got my super sticky glue, just put a smear of that on it, like so. It's got a little bit of dried plug there. Might actually get another smear of that. There we are, it's better. And then sit it in there like so. Sit that on top like so, and that will be positioned perfectly. So I'll do the same kind of idea across the board, and that will then finish off the design of this barrier. And I noticed this because I was looking much more closely at some of the clips. I am getting closer and closer to being able to do the back as well, which will be the next thing. But yeah, that's something I missed. Almost missed the fact that they were there. So I'm working at my computer desk, which is incredibly messy, but I'm having a lot of fun with this. So what I've got on the screen just out of shot is one of the screenshots I've taken from the film, and I've got my backdrop, which I have scraped with a wire brush, and what I'm now doing is building up in relief all of the shapes which are going to go to make the look of the back of Erebor at this approach to the forges. So here's my first section. I've put some of my super strong glue on it, scraped up both sides, and there it is, good grab. So the next bit is going to be using some blue foam, which I'm going to need to trim down. But the really good thing is I've got all this scrap, and one of the things I've got here is a angle that was already cut that actually matches an angle which is on the screenshot. So yeah, so I'm going to be trimming these down, gluing them in place, building up a relief on this backboard, and then anything that's not got the square and the shapes in it will go to modelling compound, and I'll make it look like rock. So I'm going to sit down and get this done, and when it's finished I'll show what it looks like. So that worked out about as well as I could have hoped. I've put the geometric shapes in, which matches close enough for me to the film, and that's now glued in place using my super strong extreme power fix thing. And I've just been having an argument about whether I'm going to glue these in place now, and actually I think I am. So I've got my set square to make sure that everything is absolutely square across, and I'm actually going to glue this back one to the backboard as well as to the floor, which is going to give that a little bit more structure at this stage, and then I'll just set these down and glue them in place. The only thing I've just realised I haven't done, which I'm going to need to do, is I haven't actually scraped up, or if I have, it's popped out the bottom of the top of this. So I'm going to need to get my wire brush, get that scraped, and then I will glue these in place, making sure that my square stays here so that everything stays in line. And I think that'll be me done for the bit. And then the next stage is going to be working on the textures. So yeah, flying on this suddenly, which is amazing how it comes together. When you do a little bit more backdrop, it's looking quite nice. So I'll get them scraped, then get them glued, and yeah, then I'm done for the night. So this is all now nice and dried and solidly in place, and of course I've realised I've made a mistake. The mistake is that this first level of relief, I should have done at least double thickness, maybe even with the blue foam as well, because now I've only got a very, very thin depth to work with to put the stone effect in. So what I'm doing, actually I'm going to put a little bit more water in that. I'm mixing up a very thin mix of modelling compound. It's going to be very watery, which means I'm going to be able to spread it on very thin, and then when it's dried I can come along and I can do a little bit of carving in it to do the rock shapes if I need to. So yeah, really, as I say, should have done a much thicker, much more prominent first level of the relief, but hey, it wouldn't be a build of mine if I didn't make a little mistake here and there. So I'll be smearing that in as thin as I can, attempting to make it so that it isn't too obvious the mistake I've made, and I might need to mix up a little bit more, not sure. So I'll smear that in, and then when it's dried and I'm coming to have a look at actually how to do the rock texture on it, if I need to make any edits to it or not, any carving, then I'll turn the camera back on. But for now, it's just going to be quite a lot of this very careful smearing in. But with this done, this diorama is rapidly approaching completion, and actually I need to get on to doing the miniatures. I might do them next. Anyway, enough rambling. I'm going to carry on with this, and I will bring you back when I get to the next step. And I've got 6 pillars, so I need to have 6 of the Thorin's company. So I have picked up Bilbo, and I have Thorin, and I have Balin. Is that Thorin? Well, I don't know, I'm rubbish at names, but I know that I've got Bomber, so I've got to have Bomber. So anyway, so I've got these, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take the clippers, I'm going to do some green stuffing. I'm going to snip them down and remove the weapons and just make them look a little bit more like they're actually hiding behind the pillars waiting for Smaug to breathe his fiery breath. So yeah, I'm not going to run the camera because this is going to be a bit fiddly and it will be really difficult to keep it in shot. But once I've done them all, I'll show you what they look like. Hopefully they'll look good. It's not really my central skill, this, but you just got to give it a go, haven't you? So that's what I'm going to do. The next stage on this involves texture. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to get white glue, my terrain glue, which is PVA mixed up with water and a little bit of washing up liquid or dishwater soap, or whatever you want to call it, from wherever you are. That is a very good basis for gluing down texture onto this sort of terrain. So if you have a look at the clips and what have you, you'll see that there's a lot of detritus, a lot of rubble. It's a ruined place, Erebor. It's not fresh and clean. So I'm going to start the layers of rubble and piles of things like this just randomly around with with lumps of this terrain glue, and I'm going to scatter on 2 different sizes of sifted sand. And this is sifted sand that just comes out of it's what we get delivered by the builders, literally from the builder's yard. So it's nothing special. And I put it through different sizes of sieve. So this is what I call number 3, which is the 3rd largest sieve I use. and I'll put that down first and just scatter that in places like this to do little piles. And the idea is this will obviously be painted and then dry brushed, so this will all be brought out properly. And don't worry if you make a mess, because it'll be resealed again. This isn't the only application of glue this takes. So you just put a little bit of this on, and then once you've done enough of that size, for my slightly smaller, which I call my grade 2, I use a spoon because it makes it a little bit easier to apply. You will make a mess at this stage. You will need to, once it's dried, shake off the loose, and it might take more than one layer to build up the effect that you're looking for, because if you look in the films, it's not all gravelly, there's just piles of gravel in places. So probably the stuff that doesn't stick, you'll want to re-sift back into your bucket. So there we are, simple as that. So what I'll do is I will now mark out, this is where it starts to get important, where my forge is going to be. So I'll mark out where I'm going to put my forge, and I am going to go with the small forge, disappointing as it is in one sense. I just don't have time to do the idea I had, which was to print it so that it was only the facade, but as wide as this, so it would have been huge. I just haven't had time to do the cutting of the file and do the preparation, though that would have been much better, obviously. It would have been huge as well. It would have looked amazing, but it would have taken a lot longer than I've had to devote to this project. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark around this, and I'm not going to glue that in place. So I will be able to come back and finish this project when I've got a bit more time with actually. Apologies for that noise. Rosie's birthday, we bought her a set of walkie-talkies, and she's playing with them. And I've got one, obviously. So yeah, so I'll probably come back and add that if I get time. But for now, I'm going to act as if I don't have time. So I'll do a few more piles over this side, and then I'll leave that to dry, and that's the next step done. So the texture I put on is dried. Now what I'm going to do is come along with black house paint and paint over the entirety of it all. And I will also be painting the rim to keep it nice and neat. So this will take a little bit of time. I'll probably not be able to do this all in one go, because I'm just taking 2 minutes, stretch my legs away from my desk. But I can just work through this a little bit at a time, and I'll be painting everything, including these, including the backdrop there, including that backdrop, and all the sides, as I say. So I'm going to give it a basic undercoat of black across the whole thing. And you'll notice I've removed the forge again. As I say, that small forge for this diorama will just be a placeholder to get the diorama done in time for the entry for Heroic Highlights. And I will be trying to do the bigger one. If I can get it at any time, that'll be even better, obviously. But I'll be trying to do a bigger one that will cover this whole back area and will be a little bit more in scale, even if the distance there is out. It's just one of those things. I should have built it on a bigger base, but then even I only have so much space. But anyway, enough rambling. I'm going to get that painting done over a little bit of time, and yeah, I'll turn the camera back on when it's finished, when I'm doing the next step. One other thing to add actually for this project is I have done quite a lot of very bad conversion work on the plastic miniatures, and done a little bit of green stuffing, so they'll be getting ready for being primed and painted. And once they're primed and painted, they will come back into this project as well. But there is other things going on that aren't hitting the camera. So yeah, let's get painting. The next step on this is to do the dry brushing in grey, and then once I've done dry brushing in grey, I'm going to do a little bit of very light green, because as you'll know if you follow the lore, or certainly in the films, there was a good chunk of green in Erebor, and I want to duplicate that. So off camera, I've just been mixing up my paint. It's been a while since I've used this, and it had separated some. So this is going to be my dark grey mix, dark grey dry brush. And if you've not seen a dry brush before, it makes such a difference to how things look. Now I use these very big brushes when I'm dry brushing for terrain, and they work so well, as you can see already. It really does start to bring out a lot of that texture, a lot of those highlights. Now I am going to need to probably stop filming in a minute because you're probably seeing a lot of my arm, but I also need to make sure that I put my hand behind so I don't break it. What we're doing here is we're bringing out the edges on everything by literally applying a very light application of a dark grey, and I will come along with a lighter grey and do it literally lighter colour and with even less paint being applied to finish this off. Like I say, I'll also do a green, and it's my favourite process. I think someone on one of the Discords asked what your favourite process is. I did answer having an idea and seeing it come to fruition and seeing it actually work. But if you're talking about physical techniques, I think dry brushing, just the magic of a dry brush, the magic of the impact it has on a piece is probably my favourite bit. So there we are. That's the first dry brush. What we'll do now, let that dry a bit, and I'll come back with a lighter grey and go over that very, very lightly, and then we'll come back with a very light green. Sorry, a bit of a frog in my throat. Come up with a very light green and just add that little bit of a highlight. So you can see this is basically sitting on top of what we've just done, and we'll just bring the tops of these bits of stone and what have you and make it just a little bit more interesting. That's enough for that dry brush. So let's get some green paint, turn the camera off, wash our brushes, and I'll come back and we'll do the green. Oh yeah, so with the green, I've just got a little bit of paint, as you can see in the lid of this paint lid, and I'm just going to come along and just really probably try and be more subtle than that even. Just put little streaks of green just to give it that little bit of an impression of what I think about of kind of maybe a green marble effect. So I'm just going to do it in stripes. That was too much. Have to cover that over with another application of a dry brush, but just in diagonal stripes across. Just what I think of when I think of Erebor. Maybe a little bit on these. There we are. We are getting close to done on this diorama piece. I need to finish Smaug. I need to finish painting up the figures, but the figures are in painting, and Smaug just needs to have a little bit of a wash on him. And then, yeah, I'm going to need to fix that. That's going to need to have some grey over the top again, just to deaden that down. That was a bit of a mistake. But yeah, then we can fix Smaug in place, and the diorama is done. So how I was going to mount this to the diorama has been confusing me for a little bit, but I think I've worked it out. I have had several crazy thoughts. I had a thought about some self-expanding foam, but yeah, what I'm going to do is I've cut this block to exactly the right length so that it will slot inside like this, and then what I can do is I can then drill through and screw through into that, and that will then be a really, really solid. So what I need to do is glue it in place, and I'm going to make use of, you guessed it, my super strong. So what I'm going to do is put a big dollop of the super strong on there, and then I need to glue it also at the bottom, and I think it's going to be around there, but I'm just going to kind of whack it on in the hope that it will meet up, and then we'll slot this in. Oh, you know, that's not far enough, it's closer in. I need to drag this up towards this end a bit. There we are. And stick that in there. There we are. And then get it so that it's absolutely parallel, like that. Okay, and then when I let that go off, when that's gone off, I can then screw this to the back, and that's a large part of this project completed. I'm then going to be looking at finishing off the miniatures. I've almost finished painting them, put them in place, and then we'll wrap the project up. So yeah, pretty exciting times. Very happy actually with how this has come out. I will probably film next time when I'm actually attaching this in. Now the sharp-eyed among you will notice I'm not putting an LED in it at the moment, but my idea for doing it like this is that I will be able to in the future, because I'll be able to get in there, put an LED in past this block of wood, and potentially light the inside if I want to. But for now I'm not going to do that. So yeah, let that go off and then we'll screw it in place. Okay, so the wooden jobby inside there is really solidly glued in place, so that's good. So what I now need to do is paint his eyes and his teeth and put the wash on, and then he'll be done. But what I have managed to finish this week, just last night, is the 6 members of Thorin's company that I'm going to have on the diorama. So I'll just lay these out here and then I'll zoom in. These took a grand total of 25 minutes in total to paint. I did a really, really quick and dirty job, but I think they look really good. So if I zoom in, you can see there. So I need to clip the bottoms off and then stick them in place behind each of their pillars, and then they'll be done. And the other thing to say is I've decided against having any of the furnaces, any of the forges here, because I just don't like how it looks. So at the moment I'm not going to put it on. So we shall see how that goes. But yeah, a little bit of progress, getting very close to finishing this now. Okay, so it's time to take shiny bright red Smaug here and turn them into something a little bit more realistic. So what I've got is I've got my raw umber, and I've got one of my dry brushes and a paper towel here. And first of all, what I'm doing is I'm going to dry brush quite heavily the dark brown. So I really need to knock back that shininess of the red. So a heavy dry brush of this. Of course I'm going to need to go down and paint his eyes and his teeth and what have you with proper hobby paint. But yeah, that's really dulled it down quite a lot. Could even go a bit more in some of these recesses. It's a bit tough to get in underneath his horns here. So it's a bit hard to get the shininess down from there. But that's really made it a lot better. So with that done, what I'm going to do is come along with this red, which is a little bit darker, but it's not quite as dark as that brown. And again, just lightly dry brush that over again, just to bring a little bit more of the highlight back. So I've taken the shine off with the brown, and I'm going to bring some of the highlight back with this. And that has given me a much better looking Smaug, I think. So yeah, what I'll do now is take him upstairs, take him downstairs even, get some Vallejo paints, paint his eye orange, paint his teeth in white, paint his tongue a bit different, and then Smaug will be done and be ready to be mounted. So that's really, really exciting. So now it's come time to stick our miniatures in, and most of them are going to be done randomly, but I'm going to have Bilbo at the front there, obviously, because he is the Hobbit, and that is the point of the whole thing. So just a little bit of super glue, and these should stick in quite nicely. And the point is they're not quite pressed up yet against the uprights. They're kind of panicking their way back. So the other ones that I know where they're going to go is Bomber and Balin. Bomber is next to Frodo, so he is going to be like that. And then Balin is behind Bomber. But other than that, there's no real order, so I will just put that in randomly. So Balin looking pretty chilled. I wasn't able to get his as good, but I'm pretty pleased with him. So I think he's going to go in next. And then it's just going to be a case of sticking on Smaug once I've finished painting his eyes. And we're done, which is pretty incredible, I think. I really like this. It's turned out quite nice. It's been fun. Now, I am aware that the super glue is going to be melting the XPS slightly, but hopefully not so much that it causes damage. But if you want to avoid that, then what you'd need to do is use a little bit of grout first before you stick your miniatures in. But as long as you don't lose too much super glue, it should be okay. And there we are, we have our figures taking cover before Smaug lights the forges. So now we come to actually fitting the dragon in place. And what I've done is I've done some measuring. I've found roughly how high up from the bottom I want the bottom of the head, and then I've measured roughly the centre of the block, and I've marked that on just here. So just going to double check that I've not made a mistake. I'll drop my ruler, make a load of noise. So that is 9 and 12.5. There we are. Yes. So that's the height we want it. So I've got my drill, and I'm going to very, very carefully drill through. There we are. Then I'm going to countersink it as well, and then I will screw it in place. So we'll get that countersinking done, and then bring it back for actually putting the screw in. Okay, so that's been countersunk. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the screw through just enough that it kind of protrudes a little bit. There we are, because that will allow me to catch correctly with Smaug's head, which we're going to bring in now. Hopefully my arm won't get right in the way, and I can then offer it up properly, hold it in place, and screw it in. Make sure he's at the right angle. He is. And there we are. Smaug's head is in place and looking superb. Right, let's have a quick wrap up of that. So this is actually like the 4th time I've tried to record this, because the battery keeps dying in my receiver on my wireless microphone. And it's a bit of a pain because it's a built-in battery. But anyway, we're finished. I've done it, and I'm very, very pleased. So you can see Smaug mounted, just screwed through the back. I don't know how much I missed actually in terms of the audio from when I was actually doing the screwing in, so we'll know that when I edit. But you can see we've got our Thorin's company down here, hiding behind the barrier to protect themselves from when Smaug's fire comes in. I'm glad that I decided against doing the actual forge on this end. I think it just would have looked really odd being so small. And when I get my printers working, my big printer working, what I might do is, like I said, just add the end on, just to like bookend this. So I have a little bit of a forge here, just on that side. But yeah, for now, very, very pleased. Really happy to have finished it. I've learned a lot. It's been a really fun project. Particularly enjoyed the Smaug head, and you can see his teeth are glistening and white, and his eye, actually I might need a little bit of a touch up on his eye. It's not actually come out as good as orange as I need, so I might put a little bit more on that just before I take the pictures. But other than that, that's a wrap. Happy with that, and it looks like my battery has stayed charged, so this is finally a take, 4th attempt. Don't normally do multiple takes, but yeah, I'll get some pictures for the proper video and wrap that up. Smaug about to light the furnaces, about to light the forges. Well, there we are. What a great build. It was a lot of fun to do that. Learned a lot, as I often do in these builds. Yeah, I was pleased that I made the decision in the end to not use the forge because it was just too small. I now have an FDM printer, though I've not printed with it yet. So my plan is to print out, slice and print out just the edge of the forge and then potentially get that in place. And if I do, then I'll put that in another video. But yeah, didn't win, didn't expect to win. Fantastically talented people that enter the Heroic Highlights Challenge, and I believe that it was Thorin looking, or not Thorin, I think Thorin looking in, no, Gimli looking in the pool and seeing the stars after their escape from Moria that won the competition. But if you want to check it out, go on to Instagram and you'll be able to find all the entries. It's great fun. Anyway, thanks for watching. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Really appreciate your views and your comments. And as always, anyone who is impacted directly or indirectly by the horrible war in Ukraine, thoughts go to you and anyone that you know who may be suffering over there. And to everyone, please do stay healthy, stay safe, and stay well.